Welcome back, Defenders. Ukraine has successfully struck another Russian oil refinery. Drones hit 2,000 kilometers inside Russia as Ukraine unleashes a 209 drone barrage on Putin's birthday. Happy birthday, Putin. I hope it's your last. This is where this refinery is located on the map, deep inside of Russia. This is the Tyumen refinery, and this is 2,000 kilometers from Ukraine's border. Now, initially, this was the only pictures or videos we got. It looked like perhaps the damage was minimal. No major fire, no major explosion. But then the next day, we got confirmation from Astra that yes, drones damaged a distillation column and part of the water supply system. This will affect the plant's operations, so we're going to count it. Let's go to the war map, and this is the Tyumen refinery located right here. This is officially 1,980 kilometers from the border, and it produces 7.5 million tons of refined products per year. But there's no refinery too far, no refinery too small. Ukraine eventually is going to get them all until Russia stops this war. And this is good news. One of Russia's biggest oil refineries halts most productive units after a drone attack from a couple days ago. This is the Kurishi oil refinery. This is Russia's second largest refinery. And it has halted crude distillation unit CDU-6, its most productive unit, following a drone attack and subsequent fire on October 4th. According to the sources, these are sources working at the facility, CDU-6 has a capacity of 8 million metric tons per year, or 160,000 barrels per day. This accounts for 40% of the plant's total processing capacity. And it's going to be offline for months. Russia is saying they can fix it in a month, but not when dozens of their refineries are damaged or on fire. This is going to take longer than a month to fix. Ukraine also hits the largest oil terminal in Crimea. This is confirmed by a giant fireball. I'll link these videos down below, but this is the oil import-export terminal in Feodosia. Ukraine has probably bombed this at least a dozen times. As always, all the pictures and videos I'll link down below if you want to see the fireball. This is where Feodosia is located on the Crimean Peninsula. And my assumption is they're importing oil and gas through this terminal to supply the Crimean Peninsula. And Ukraine is trying to deprive the occupied territories of fuel and gas. Here is what the fire looks like on day 2. They definitely ignited something and the local firefighting crews can't put it out. So we'll see how many days this oil terminal in Crimea will burn for. These are the results. This is what we're seeing every day inside Russia on social media. Russians all across the country have now started hoarding gasoline. When they go to their local gas station and they still are able to fill up their cars, they're bringing, buckets, empty pails, and just filling up whatever they can, anticipating that there's going to be additional shortages. Or else they can just hoard the gasoline for themselves and then they can sell it to their neighbors for a high markup. Here is a resident, I think, of the city of Bryansk, and he is expressing how upset he is at the price of gasoline. He can still buy it, but he's upset about the price.
А вы не охереете ли? Что я вам сейчас просто покажу? Куда? Скажи! Вот сюда! Вот сюда! Вот сюда! Куда? Вы чё? Вы в натуре, что ли, угораете? 80, блядь, 9 рублей, 90 рублей, 95-й бензин вот этого Олви, который вообще просто ужасный. Машина не едет, кончается он быстро. Я просто в ахере. Вот свой комментарий.
90 rubles per liter. My question is, what happens when it goes over 100 rubles per liter? All of these digital boards don't have space for a third whole digit, so they're going to have to cut off a decimal point, I guess, but yeah, that's a problem. It's a problem for Russians. But at least that guy had gasoline. This next clip is hilarious. The first one is the guy complaining that gasoline costs 75 rubles per liter, so I'll play this one.
Вот такие цены в жуке на бензин сегодня. 75,95, 71,92, 75 дизельное топливо.
Yada, yada, yada. He's complaining about the price. It's then the same guy in Bryansk 3 days later complaining that there's now no gasoline.
Брянск, Газпром, бензина нет ни 92, ни 95. Дизель уже 68,40. Цены растут на глазах. Никто не заправляется, бензина нет.
That is a terrible crying shame. I have so much sympathy for this man. But this is what is going to break down Russian society, the trucking industry. If the trucks run out of diesel, they can't transport anything. Yes, Russia moves a lot by rail and by ship, but the last 100 kilometers or so, it's got to be moved by trucks. And we're now seeing videos on the highways in Russia's interstate system showing trucks lined up for diesel, lined up for fuel, trucks breaking down. This is what is going to cause shelves in Russia to eventually go empty. The trucks can't even make their deliveries because they don't have fuel. Ukraine also struck an explosives plant. Drones hit huge Russian explosive plant 900 kilometers behind the lines. This is the Sverdlov plant that produced explosives for the Russian military, and Ukraine successfully struck it. If you want to see the videos of the plant on fire in a distance, as always, I'll link them down below. That's the refineries. Let's now talk about thermal power plants. And I'm going to keep repeating this, but over the last 3 years, Russia has already destroyed all of Ukraine's major thermal power plants. It was horrendous to cover. I'm the one who covered all these explosions as they happened. But Russia is still targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Their plan to win this war is still lights out, no running water, no heat, make life unbearable for the civilian population of Ukraine, so they all just flee. They all just leave and go to Europe. Russian strikes kill 5 in Ukraine, causing power outages. Russian strikes on energy facilities leave 21,000 without power in Kharkiv, destroying homes and killing a woman in Kherson. So what Ukraine is about to do is they're trying to gradually ease into this new strategy of retaliatory strikes. Ukraine is now going to start striking Russian thermal power plants. Kyiv reportedly knocks out power to 40,000 in Russia's Belgorod and Bryansk oblasts after Moscow hits Ukraine with 50 missiles. This is the Klinsy thermal power plants in Bryansk. This is the Belgorod thermal power plants in Belgorod. And Ukraine waited for Russia to strike their energy infrastructure. They gave the Russians notification. They then immediately retaliated with Neptune missiles. So what Ukraine is doing is they're trying to ease their way into this so that the rest of the world doesn't condemn Ukraine. If Russia attacks Ukraine's energy infrastructure, immediately the next day, Ukraine is going to respond in kind. I don't know how China or India in the UN can complain. I don't know how any Western coalition partners can also complain. Russia does it, Ukraine's going to respond. That's how it's going to be for the first couple weeks or maybe even couple months. But then once this has been normalized, that Ukraine can just do this, because technically this is a war crime, neither side should be targeting civilian infrastructure, but Russia's been doing that for over 3 years. So Ukraine is easing their way into this, getting the Western alliance used to this idea that thermal power plants are now valid military targets. Ukraine doesn't want to do this. Russia is forcing them. But here are the results. This is the thermal power plant in Bryansk. Ukraine struck it with a missile, and in this video it's clearly on fire. This is the thermal power plant in Belgorod, and it was struck with a missile, and you can see smoke rising from the facility. Here's a close-up picture of what the power plant looks like. It did have drone netting covering some of the facility, but it didn't help. And you can clearly see part of the building over here has collapsed to the ground. This is going to keep happening. There are lots of videos online in Belgorod of citizens complaining about not having electricity, not having power. I'm guessing power within a day was restored, but if it's being diverted from somewhere else, Ukraine can just strike that power plant. There's also this video of residents of Belgorod driving around the city. There's no street lights, there's no traffic lights working. People still have generators, so there's some shops that still have power. But the entire city, it was lights out for at least a day. Zelensky hits Ukraine maybe using new long-range weapons and strikes inside of Russia. Ukraine unveiled a new variant of their Neptune missile. You can see there's kind of like these bulges right here on the side. And Ukraine wants Russia to know they have the capabilities, they have the production. More pain is coming for Russian civilians unless Russia's government stops this war. Unless they take a ceasefire negotiation or peace talks serious, things are going to get worse for Russia. Ukraine develops 5 deep strike weapons capable of reaching 1,000 kilometers into Russia. We've been seeing these unveiled over the last year or so. These are all domestically produced weapons by Ukraine. You've got the Palanitsia, the Peklo, the Neptune, the Sapson, and then they've got their cruise missile drones. But this also includes the Flamingo. And I think people have been asking the question, why isn't Ukraine using the Flamingo cruise missiles? And up until this point, about 60% of the deep strikes inside of Russia have just been used by the FP1 drone. This is produced by the Ukrainian company Firepoint. And I don't know. My assumption, I'm just guessing here, I'm guessing the drones like this FP1 drone, this is what Ukraine is using to strike the oil refineries. I'm guessing this is cheaper. I also assume it went into production earlier. This factory producing these drones have been going the longest, so Ukraine's stockpiles of this drone are probably greater than Peklo or Flamingo or the others. Additionally, I don't know, but maybe it has something to do with radar tracking. This drone flying through the sky might confuse radar operators as a civilian aircraft, whereas a cruise missile or a ballistic missile, that's going to show up differently. So perhaps this drone type just has more effectiveness at the moment getting through Russian air defenses. But these other missiles are coming. Zelensky was asked this point blank. Why isn't Ukraine using their Flamingo missiles if they're producing currently 1 or 2 a day? And this was Zelensky's answer. I think that about detailed publicity, about the use of our long-range capabilities, we'll talk a little later. We will not prepare the enemy accordingly for where we are, what we have achieved, and what we are using. The main thing to understand is that in recent days, Ukraine has been using exclusively Ukrainian production, not just drones. And based on those hits, I think people can understand from the fragments on social media where drones are used and where they are not used. And I would like to thank not only the soldiers, but also the companies that took the necessary steps. This is Zelensky telling the Russians, more is coming soon. What's Russia been up to? Russian drone hits maternity hospital in Sumy. This maternity hospital that Russia deliberately targeted. At the time of the strike, there were 11 babies and 35 pregnant women, as well as 120 staff in the building. The drone slammed into the roof. The roof caught fire. Thankfully, nobody was killed, nobody was injured. The damage to the roof is extensive, but it didn't punch through, for example, the ceiling of the top floor. But this is how Russia prioritizes their scarce resources, going after maternity hospitals. This is an interesting document, and I'm going to assume it's true. It kind of looks true. But the Ukrainian project, I don't know how to read that because I can't read that. But allegedly, this is a classified Russian document that was leaked to them showing what is Russia's casualties for the first 10 months of this year. So going back to January, and according to these numbers, allegedly internal Russian numbers, Russia has lost 86,000 troops, about 10,000 a month. This is KIA, not counting wounded. But if you break it down to the different districts, north, west, center, east, south, and Dnipro, yeah, I mean, over the last 10 months, these look realistic. For example, in the Kherson region, 5,100 Russian troops have been killed, 7,700 wounded, 345 MIA. In the Zaporizhia region, 7,900 killed. In the southern Donetsk, 10,000. The main battlefront happening, near Konstantinivka, 34,000. In the Luhansk region, 15,000. And then in the Kharkiv opposite region, 13,000. Yeah, these numbers look accurate considering how little Russian commanders care about their frontline forces. And this is an interesting Telegram post. This is the popular Russian Telegram channel Romanov Light. And he was asked, why don't you join the Russian military? Why don't you sign a contract and go fight for your country? And he made the mistake of giving an honest answer. So I want to read you a little bit of what this Russian military blogger is saying. The average life cycle of an assault troop member is 12 days. Day 1, they sign the contract and arrive at the training ground. Days 2 to 11, they train. Day 12, they deploy to their positions somewhere on the front. In the hot spots, 1 out of every 2 soldiers reaches their position. The rest die in transit because of FPV drones, landmines, and artillery. Because of enemy drones, because almost no one systematically intercepts the initiative in the sky, there's no resources, skill, or desire. I often talk to those who have signed the contract and who are deployed to positions. I ask them, do you understand that you're screwed tomorrow? What's your motivation? Most of them just answer, my family will get the payments. And here's my answer. I don't sign a contract because from the moment of signing, the countdown of my last days of 12 begins. This is a Russian military blogger saying half of Russian soldiers who sign contracts don't even make it to the front. They die in transit before they get there. And then they're immediately sent on a meat assault, and they die pointlessly. This is how goofy frontline Russian forces are getting. It just feels more and more like a Mad Max movie every day.
Парад с БМПшки на москвич ебанули. Красавцы.
Зверюга, бля.
It's better than nothing, but I am not impressed. This is a turret from a BMP-1 mounted on a civilian car called a Moskvich. And this is what the Russians are taking into battle. Here's an interesting video put out by just an ordinary Russian woman. I don't know if she's in Russia. If she is, she's going to be arrested. Or if maybe she's a Russian exile. But she perfectly describes the situation currently in Russian society. Of course, our great strategist Putin has many achievements, but the most outstanding ones, in my opinion, are the following. He replaced truth and reality with wild propaganda. He increased Russia's borders with NATO by more than 1,500 kilometers. He drove Russia into complete dependence on China. He lost more than $500 billion in frozen assets. He lost the European market, the largest and most profitable market for oil and gas. He lost most of the exports of metals, timber, and coal. He lost a huge number of specialists, as well as the active and able-bodied population. He massively increased the outflow of capital from the country. He lost the market for space launches and scientific space exploration. He destroyed the air transportation market. He put a big cross over world sports. Of course, Russian athletes can pretend that everything is fine, but I am sure that deep down they hate Putin for this. The dream of every professional athlete is the Olympic Games and World Championships. He raised the retirement age, yet there is still no money for pensions. But when it comes to war, there is money, and that's the paradox. He turned Russia into a terrorist state, despised now by the entire civilized world. He made Russia the leader in the number of sanctions imposed in all of human history. He made outcasts Russia's friends, North Korea, Iran, the Taliban, Hamas, and other riffraff. He orchestrated genocide and repression. He increased crime in the country. He unleashed a bloody war that nobody needed, on which hundreds of billions of dollars have already been spent. He disgraced the army. If it weren't for this war, the whole world would still consider the Russian army the second strongest in the world. He united all Ukrainians and the entire civilized world in hatred towards Russia. He brought shame upon Russia before the whole world. And the list could go on, but is there any point? I think it's clear enough already. Volodya, as always, outplayed everyone. Yeah, that's not a complete list, but it's pretty accurate. Other political news, I want to quick mention this. Tomahawk decisions sort of made, says Trump, as conditions emerge. I want to find out what they're doing with them. Trump mulls sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. I don't think this is going to happen, and even if it does happen, it'll be like 6 months or a year from now. Yes, there is a ground launch version of Tomahawks. These are the Typhoon launchers. But this is silly. There's no reason to send Ukraine Tomahawks when there are other systems that could be sent and used today. If Trump wants to send Tomahawks, then the United States has to train mechanics and specialists to operate the trucks, to operate the missiles. When the United States could just sell JASSMs to Ukraine today, and they could be fired from F-16s today. So I don't know why Trump keeps talking about Tomahawks. I think this is a bluff. I think this is supposed to psychologically put pressure on the Russians. I personally am not going to believe that Tomahawks are going to be delivered to Ukraine unless like 100 JASSMs are sold first. If Trump was willing to sell even a small amount, 100 JASSMs to Ukraine to be used inside of Russia, then I'll start believing some of this Tomahawk nonsense to be true. This is a good headline. Belarus bans consumer price rises in bid to tame inflation. Inflation in Russia is bad, but inflation in Belarus is even worse. And Lukashenko declared yesterday that nobody anywhere in the country is allowed to raise prices on anything starting immediately. This is what he says. Do it so that people feel good, not as Nikolai says. Well, let's do it at the macro level. Listen, people don't give a damn about your macro level. Starting October 6th, any price increase is prohibited. It's prohibited. Starting today, not tomorrow, today, so that they don't increase prices in a day. Then they will say, listen, we raised prices of October 6th. Therefore, the price increase is prohibited starting today. And God forbid someone will do something retroactively on the books. Price controls don't work because merchants and vendors are not going to sell stuff for a loss. If you can't sell something for a profit, then you stop selling it or you just sell it on the black market. So Lukashenko's brilliant economic idea of price controls, when external influences are causing prices to increase, like the price of energy and fuel in Belarus, I'm sure, is increasing. That is baked into the price of everything that's delivered to any store. This isn't going to work. I did mention this to you guys a couple weeks ago that the canary in the coal mine is Belarus. If things in Russia are starting to weaken, if there truly will be an economic collapse over the next 6 months, it's going to happen in Belarus first. And Putin is not going to save Lukashenko. Putin is not going to save Belarus because he's going to preserve himself. This is the same thing that happened to Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Putin couldn't save him, didn't even try, because Putin is more concerned about the core territories. The same is true with Iran. When the United States started bombing Iran earlier this year, Putin didn't do anything. He's not going to protect his friends. So if things in Russia are getting bad, things in Belarus will get worse first. And we're going to see how Lukashenko reacts. And these are some interesting indicators. Slovakia to hand over Bezina demining machines to Ukraine. Thank you, Slovakia. Fico decided to send some demining equipment to Ukraine to help them. But yes, I think if Russia looks weak, if they start to wobble, then all the other rats are going to flee the ship. Slovakia, Hungary, Serbia, Georgia, the governments, the pro-Russian governments of all these countries, they don't have any real ideological loyalty to Putin. They're just being paid to be loyal to Putin. And as soon as the money stops, just like in Transnistria, as soon as the money stops, these guys are going to pretend like they never supported Russia, and they always supported Ukraine. They're just trying to survive. Follow up on the 15-year-old Ukrainian girl in Lviv, Anastasia, who was killed in a Russian drone strike, along with her mother and grandparents. Her father is a defender who's been fighting on the front lines. He was notified about the death of his daughter and other family members, and this is a clip of him returning home from the front to find his home destroyed.
Позвонили зранку, хоч зв'язку не було, я не знаю, яким чудом до мене дозвонилася тьоща. Вчилася тут в Лапаївському ліцеї, а років було 15, минуло 26 серпня. Вечором ще списалась, вона спитала, як я відповів все ок, як ти, відписала теж все ок. І зранку вже отака новина.
The Russians are just terrorists. That's all they are. One more clip. The Prime Minister of the Netherlands visited Kyiv, and he and Zelensky visited the Wall of Heroes. So I'm going to share this clip. Thank you so much to the Dutch Prime Minister for paying your respects to fallen heroes. Continue supporting Ukraine. Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.